how did you make the transition into supervision in '86? What was that path?
With starting the label, with this great success, the windfall that came out of our first release, Damn the Torpedoes.
Amazing record.
And learning the record business behind that classic album. I had, you know, and coming out of film school and loving film and being intoxicated with, when it's good, with the marriage of music and film, sitting in that big dark room and with a collective experience and an audience, and surrounded with an amazing stereo system and illuminated visuals. When the music's right, to me, it's the ultimate elixir and marriage of media and senses. And so I felt strongly about not only just bringing in, at the time, the soundtrack template was maybe one song. You know, yes, there were, I think, Grease and Saturday Night Fever in that year, that very year, but the idea of bringing in contemporary artists into the scoring area of film music. And so, again, you know, I was a great fan of and hero of mine. I would convince Neil Young to do his very first score for a movie called Where the Buffalo Roam, the first bad movie made about Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, that was Johnny.
With Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
And Neil scored that, and I paired Neil's orchestral and electrical guitar score with songs at the time, which at the time was unique. Bob Dylan, convincing Walter Yetnikoff to get Bob Dylan off of Columbia and putting him on my label through MCA.
Those were difficult back then.
That was the name of the game then. No one shared. No one shared.
Right.
And no one shared, and let alone Sony. And yet my little label, I was that young guy. I wasn't considered a true competitor, of course, to the big ones. And so put together, I made a very psychedelic collection. Dylan, the Spinners, Creedence, etc. But the unique status of that record was my ability to get all of those artists and to cross-pollinate them off of their major,
which is half the battle,
you know, paternal labels, and get them into my small label. So it's launching with Neil doing that, and then brought Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer to do a movie called Nighthawks with Sylvester Stallone coming off of Rocky then. And then Ry Cooder. At the time, it was his first score before Paris, Texas was released, but a movie called The Border, great Tex-Mex record, and with Ry Cooder and Sam the Sham, Samudio, and Freddie Fender, and then did Giorgio Moroder and Scarface.
So did you get in through soundtracks? Is that how you started doing it first? Before you got hired as a supervisor? Who hired you?
So I put out, since no one else was doing it, I put them out as a label head.
That's what I'm saying.
Financed them through my label. I left Backstreet and Universal overall in 1985, and then there was this new, very much wanted to sink my hands into the paint, you know, playing executive, being offered, you know, a bigger position within the Universal corporate umbrella. I was frustrated with that, and so I very much wanted, you know, Cameron had gotten introduced to the heads of Universal, and they made a deal for him to write his first script, a little movie called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I ended up, I very much wanted to you know, produce, get into film, but knowing that I'd have to use my forehand while I develop my backhand with film, use my forehand, my talent in music to get into the film game.
Right.
And so I started, you know, then there was no such thing as a film musical producer because of the Producers Guild, or a musical director in the Directors Guild. But this term that I guess spawned out of television, the guys that kind of handled the contractors, booked the musicians, handled, but really never developed, you know, original songs. But this area, this this title called music supervisor, music supervision. And Joel Sill, the ex-head of Paramount, had accomplished that title and gotten it in the first main titles. Becky Shargo.
Was Joel's the first one, you think?
I believe Joel, there was Becky, and there, of course, Tom Hanks' now partner, Gary Goetzman, had those credits. Those are the first that I had known of. And then I came in, and I remember all of us at that time, regardless of if the parent studio wanted to give us main title credits, we had to still petition. It was the guild, the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, to be able to secure just a main title credit.
For more Q Score, please check us out at empowerme.tv to find out what goes on behind the curtain and how the film and TV music gets made. It happens right here. Tune in.